I'm willing to bet nobody saw this coming. Welcome back, everyone, to another Game Vault video. As always, I'm Cat the Beefy with said Game Vault. And we're going to talk once again about Bioware, Dragon Age to Veilguard, failure, and all kinds of other stuff. Let's cue the music and we'll get right to it. Alright, so Bioware's been gutted and restructured after Dragon Age to the Veilguard failure. The studio tries to assure longtime fans as Mass Effect becomes the primary focus. The fallout from Dragon Age to Veilguard's catastrophic failure continues, with Bioware now undergoing a massive restructuring that all but confirms the studio is being slashed to the bone. In a post on BioWare's official blog, studio manager Gary McKay announced that the company is shifting its focus entirely to the next Mass Effect game, effectively sidelining Dragon Age after the latest installment's disastrous reception. This is an old story, and we've been harping on this, since the very first trailer came out that this was going to be a failure. Now, Shields called us all kinds of names. They said it was going to be a success. It was going to be the best game ever since Grand Theft Auto 5. It was going to revolutionize the industry. It was going to cause a new wave in gaming where, no, I'm just kidding. I'm exaggerating a little bit. But you know what I'm saying here. The shills came hard. Everybody was giving it really high ratings. Didn't IGN give it a 9 out of 10? Oh my God, man. This game was absolute trash. Absolute trash. The director, Corinne Busche, a dude who thinks he's a girl, basically made a story set in medieval times about a non-binary idiot coming out to its family and whatever. I mean, what a complete waste of resources, a waste of a decade of development time, hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's costing people their jobs, and they took off like a rat from a sinking ship. That's exactly what they are. So I hope they're done in this industry and we never see them again. Anyway, while McKay attempts to paint this as an exciting new chapter for Bioware, they always try to do this, the reality is clear. Veilguard's failure has forced EA's hand, and the studio is now being gutted. Key staff are being shuffled out of Bioware and into other EA divisions, and while the statement avoids explicitly mentioning layoffs, it's coming, the language strongly suggests that many developers won't have a place to land. Ouch. Today, we are turning towards the future and preparing for the next chapter in BioWare's story, McKay wrote. As we announced in August 2023, we are changing how we build games to meet the needs of our upcoming projects and hold ourselves to the highest quality standards. Translation: Dragon Age to Veilguard failed so badly that BioWare's entire structure is being dismantled. He thinks Shepard, this is him seeing the game for the first time. He's like, what the... McKay confirmed that a core team of Bioware is now dedicated to developing the next Mass Effect game under the leadership of veterans from the original trilogy, specifically naming Mike Gamble, Preston Wadamaniak, Derek Watts, and Parrish Lay. While framed as a reassuring statement for fans, it also heavily implies that the team behind the Veilguard is out. This includes the game's director, Corinne Busche, who recently left Bioware for another opportunity. Right. While Busche claimed the departure was voluntary, it's hard to believe that after leading a game to such a spectacular commercial failure, this high-profile exit didn't come at the insistence of higher-ups. I'm going to tell you what. This was definitely... They were fired. This guy was fired, man. People were not knocking at Corinne Busche's door after Veilguard came out. They're not like, oh my God, Corinne... The reception this game got was fantastic. The sales were astronomical. The way Tash sat down at dinner with their mother and said that they're non-binary, I was floored. We want this in our next game. Nobody came to this person for that. Nobody. Everybody in this industry was like, what the was that? Yeah. Sorry, Busche. You were shit canned. EA doesn't tolerate high-profile flop. The Veilguard was just that, failing to meet even half of the company's engagement expectations. We talked about sales expectations. They were hoping for 3 million. They said they got 1.5 engagement. We don't know what that number means exactly. If you know what that means, it's kind of ambiguous. We can kind of guess what it means, but different people are going to have different interpretations of it. Anyway, EA's financial nightmare, Bioware's restructuring, follows one of the worst financial weeks in EA's recent history. After slashing its revenue forecast due to Veilguard's underperformance and EA Sports FC 25's weak holiday sales, EA stock took a nosedive, plummeting nearly 20% over the course of 2 days. Investors are now openly questioning the direction of the company, particularly BioWare's decision-making. Prior to the Veilguard's launch, internal projections suggested it would sell over 10 million copies in the life cycle, but it barely engaged, there it is again, 1.5 million players by the end of 2024. A game that many hoped would be a triumphant return for the Dragon Age series has instead become a cautionary tale of how far the franchise and BioWare have fallen. This game may have put a stake in the heart of Dragon Age. It may have killed this franchise forever. If nothing else, it buried it for a long time. We're not going to see this franchise coming back for a while. We got to get this taste out of our mouths as fans. I probably won't be alive for the next Dragon Age, to be honest with you. I'm 55 years old. It's probably going to be like 30 years before we see another one. Someone digs out this old copy of Veilguard and goes, you know what? I think it's time to resurrect this franchise. You know what? Everybody forgot about they, them. So, I don't know, man. We'll have to see. Anyway, given the stage of development, we don't require support from the full studio. McKay said, we have incredible talent here at BioWare, and so we've worked diligently over the past few months to match many of our colleagues with other teams at EA that have open roles that were a strong fit. McKay stated that many BioWare employees are being reassigned or matched with other EA teams, but at this stage, that likely means significant layoffs are incoming. When a studio is dismantled like this, there are always redundancies, and EA is unlikely to keep excess staff around indefinitely. Nobody wants excess staff. It's a money sink. One of the biggest criticisms of Dragon Age: The Veilguard is the heavy emphasis on identity politics at the expense of quality storytelling and gameplay. Under Busche's leadership, the game was marketed as a progressive reimagining of the Dragon Age universe, featuring an over-the-top focus on diverse character representation rather than the rich, immersive world building that made the series a success in the first place. The character designs were awful too. I mean, the setting was beautiful, man. Some of the set pieces were fantastic. It looked great. The dialogue I heard, though, oh man, it was horrible. It sounded like it was written by teenage girls, man. It was just absolutely despicable. You gotta pull a Merv or a Farv or whatever because you misgendered somebody and went off to do push-ups. It's absolutely pathetic. Players pushed back hard, with many longtime fans feeling alienated by BioWare's shift in priorities. Instead of delivering a deep, complex RPG, the Veilguard felt more like an ideological lecture wrapped in a game engine, one that failed to attract even a fraction of the audience EA had hoped for. Now BioWare is being forced to clean house and Mass Effect, a franchise that still has significant goodwill with some fans, is their last chance to salvage what's left of the studio's reputation. McKay's blog post makes it clear that EA is putting its faith in Mass Effect veterans to steer the ship, an implicit admission that the people responsible for the Veilguard can't be trusted to lead the studio forward. It sounds like they tightened up the team quite a bit, and you know what? That's a good thing. I think these studios have really allowed their teams to bloat, and that's why they have these monster budgets that are just ridiculous, that require you to sell 10 million copies to make money. I mean, I look at some games that did well, but they're not getting a sequel or they're not continuing with the franchise. Like, for instance, the Dead Space remake, right? I love the original Dead Space series, one of my favorites of all time. 3 sucked, but that's a different story. The Dead Space remake was, oh my God, it was fantastic, right? It was freaking gorgeous. It was terrifying. Great game. Sold, 1 million copies, right? It's a niche game. It's not a big franchise, right? it's sci-fi horror set in space. Those games they don't sell 10 million copies. It's not Resident Evil. It's not, it's not one of these bigger franchises. Sold 1 million copies. Wasn't enough to greenlight, unfortunately, Dead Space 2, which was the best of the 3 games in the original series. And if they would have just done that one, they would have probably sold 2.5 times that amount. It would probably sold 2.5, 3 million maybe copies of that. That game was so much better. But anyway, here we are. They're going to produce trash like this, though, right? McKay closed his statement with what read like a desperate attempt at reassurance. Today's news will see BioWare become a more agile, focused studio that produces unforgettable RPGs. We appreciate your support as we build a new future for BioWare. But for many fans, it's too little too late. The damage has been done, and BioWare is no longer the revered RPG powerhouse it once was. The studio's future now hinges entirely on the next Mass Effect, and if it fails, BioWare may not survive at all. At this point, the only question is whether EA will learn from its mistakes or continue doubling down on the disastrous trends that led to the Veilguard's failure in the first place. What do you guys think? You think BioWare is going to change? I don't think they have a choice. I think EA is bringing the hammer down on them at this point, man. And I think if they deliver the same type of garbage they delivered, yeah, they will be disbanded completely. And we got to remember, and I've said this before, it's not developers, it's not companies to make games. It's the people, it's the developers. And it sounds like they're going back to some of the original guys. That's probably a good thing. If you got some good veterans and a nice tight team like that, you get them some support staff, they can probably do a lot better than 3 times the amount of these freaking activist clowns. They're they-thems and nose-pierced, blue-haired freaks, Yeah, they could probably put out a much better product than an army of those people. Anyway, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Ring that bell for notifications. We'll see you next time. Until then, peace.